Free-to-play moneymakers have been terrible for a long time now, but not anymore because I've spent my whole Christmas finding the best free-to-play moneymakers for you that smash the current ones that you can find on the wiki, just so next year I can get on Santa's good list.
Naughty list.
I'm not on the naughty list.
Yes, you are.
Wait till you find out who really buys your presents. Starting off with the big one, for this you're going to need to join a Discord or two. You can either join the Oldskool or the Runescape Collectors Discord, and I'll put links in the description to both. These are full of players that buy large amounts of unusual or rare items, and they pay a lot of money for them. One of those is incomplete or uncooked pizzas. And what makes these unusual is that whilst they can be traded from player to player, they aren't listed in the GE, so can't be traded there. This results in there not being many of them in the game, which is very desirable to collectors. The ingredients for an incomplete pizza can be bought, which is just a tomato and a pizza base, and they currently cost 230 GP per pizza. It only requires level 35 cooking to create one, and you simply use one on top of the other to make it. I tested the method making 500, which took me just 12 minutes and 22 seconds. The current price the traders of incomplete pizzas are asking for is 1,250 GP each, and at that price you'd be making 2.5 million GP per hour. However, it would likely take you a very long time to sell at that price, and I'd personally contact the traders and just offer to sell them for 750 GP each. That way, you get paid quickly and make decent money, plus they make money flipping them, and it works out for everyone. And at that price, you're still making 1.25 million GP per hour. If you want, you can also add cheese to them if you like to make an uncooked pizza, which currently have an asking price on the Discords of 1,500 GP each. Adding that extra step drops the hourly rate a little bit to about 1 million GP per hour if you sell them quickly for 1,000 GP each, but could be useful if you can't find any buys for the incomplete pizzas. Finally, with this method, just so you know there's no risk, if you can't sell them to anyone, you can even cook them yourself and sell them on the G, and even that makes you 200,000 GP per hour. There's no requirements for the next one as it just requires level 1 cooking. All you need to do is buy the same amount of pie shells and pastry dough, then use one on top of the other to make pie shells. Doesn't give you any XP, so players who wish to make pies will gladly pay a little bit more for other players to do this step for them. Currently, the ingredients to make the shells cost just under 250 GP each, and the shells sell for 365 GP, which is a 116 GP profit on every one. 500 of those took me just 12 minutes and 42 seconds, and whilst there's better free-to-play moneymakers, it makes my list because it still beats 99% of the moneymakers on the wiki at 300,000 GP per hour, and it has absolutely no requirements. The clothes shop in the centre of Varrock has a bunch of useful items. If you use Runelight and click value on any item and then examine, it will tell you the cost price from the shop as well as the current price that they sell for on the GE. Many of these items give you a decent profit right now, and it's not far to run to the bank just in the west. So you can simply buy any items that are profitable, bank, run back and repeat, just hopping worlds whenever the shop runs out of stock. I used 2 plugins to help me with this one. The first one is Menu Entry Swapper, and the UI Swap section allows you to purchase up to 50 items at a time from a shop by simply holding down the Shift key and then left clicking. I also use World Hopper, which simply lets you hop worlds by only pressing one key, just saves a little bit of time. Always check which items are profitable before doing any of these methods, but for me it was aprons, pink skirts and silk. In just over 5 minutes I only spent 1,500 GP, so a really cheap method, and they sold in the GE very quickly. Although things like the pink skirt will usually take a while to sell, I just got lucky. And for a very cheap method to do with no requirements at all, it makes you 300,000 GP per hour currently, so a great way to make money on a brand new account, or even just a starter one to make enough money to do one of the better methods. You can do this method either passively by simply leaving offers in the GE, or much quicker by buying packs of runes from the rune shop in the southeast of Varrock. In the Oldskool and Runescape Collector Discords, you can trade bulk amounts of runes, but there's a rule that helps you make a lot of money. Earth, fire, water and air runes must be sold for a minimum of 6 GP each, and the current price for all of these is just 4 GP on the GE, or if you buy packs from the shop, they cost an average of about 4.5 GP each. The buy limit on the GE is 50,000 per 4 hours, so using the passive method by leaving offers in for 3 different types of runes, you could buy 150,000 every 4 hours making you a profit of 300,000 GP. Alternatively, if you buy them yourself from the shop, I managed to purchase 68,600 runes in just 5 minutes, and at an average profit of 1.5 GP each, that was a profit of 102,000 GP, making this method 1.2 million GP per hour. And the best part is there's a lot of buyers for runes from players that are mage training, that don't want to have to wait ages to buy the runes because of the GE limits. The downside to this method is it is quite click intense to do manually, and rune buyers normally want a large amount, so you're probably going to need a few million GP to do it. For some reason, steel arrows have been quite expensive for a long time now, and even more money than both Addy and Rune, and you can buy these in various places. For free to play, there's an archery shop in the centre of Varric and one in Rimington too. Whilst you're here, you might as well buy bronze and iron arrows too, which are also profitable right now. But just make sure to click value on each item and examine it to make sure that when you try this method, they're still profitable. You also need to be a little bit careful with this one, as the price of the arrows goes up the lower the shop stock is. The Varric shop stock should be 2,000 bronze, 1,500 iron and 1,000 steel before you buy any of them. As long as that is the case, you can use the menu entry swapper plugin to buy 50 at a time, and then buy 100 bronze arrows, 50 iron and 50 steel. Then Hot Worlds, making sure the stock is 2,000, 1,500 and 1,000 again, and then keep repeating that process. In 5 minutes, I purchased just under 5,000 arrows for 20,000 GP, so not an expensive method at all, and they all sold instantly for a profit of 31,000 GP, which works out to be 372,000 GP per hour, and it has no requirements. Feathers cost 2 GP from any shop, such as the fishing shop in Ports of Rim, but sell quickly on the GE for 3 GP each. Or using the All Bulks or Runescape Collectors Discords, it takes a little bit longer this way, but you get 4 GP each if you have a large amount. It might not sound like a lot, but that's a couple of 100 GP profit every time you click your mouse, and it really adds up. There's 2 methods that you can do, one is semi-AFK, and the other is more profitable, but very click intense. Buying 2 inventories of packs of feathers and clicking to open each one before hopping worlds means you pay an average of 2.5 GP each, as the price does go up the lower the stock gets. You don't want to be purchasing packs once the stocks gets below 50, as you're going to start paying close to 3 GP per feather, so it's better to change worlds to reset the stock. You can buy around 600,000 feathers per hour this way, which means selling them in one of the bulk discords will give you a 900,000 GP per hour profit. The other option is to click one of the packs of feathers and the game will slowly open all of the packs for you and you don't have to do anything else. Whilst it's much slower that way, you save some time as you don't need to hot worlds since the stock resets faster than you're actually opening the packs. Plus, you only pay about 2.15 GP per feather on average because of the higher stock levels. That way opens 300,000 per hour, which is still 555,000 GP per hour if you sell them in a Discord, or 255,000 GP selling them at 3 GP on the GE, which they do currently sell for even though the GE price says 2 GP. This one is probably the closest thing to an AFK decent free-to-play moneymaker that we have. The only decent free-to-play moneymaker where you can train combat at the same time is Moss Giants. These can be killed in the wilderness or in Edgeville, but you get a much higher drop rate for the Mossy Key if you take the risk of killing them in the Wildy. Full Addy, an Amulet of Power and a Rune Sim will give you all of the stats you need without risking too much, and the wilderness is pretty dead in free to play anyway. To get there, just use the minigame teleport to Ferox Enclave and run north. The reason this is the only good combat moneymaker is because each key gives you access to the Moss Giant boss, which can easily be killed with mid-level stats and has a 1 in 118 chance to drop the essence, which is now worth 8 million GP. The drop rate for one of the keys in the wilderness is 1 in 60, and on my ult with stats in the low 90s, it took me 17 minutes. So you're looking at 3 keys per hour with stats in the 70s and 80s, and probably 2 keys with stats in the 50s and 60s. Each key is worth 86,000 GP on average, plus you get a few smaller drops too, making this method 200 to 400,000 GP per hour depending on your levels. Crafting shop on the east side of Al Kharid sells jewellery molds plus a few other items including a stock of 100 thread. The items in the shop cost just a few GP each and all sell for far more. This is probably one of the fastest ways to start making decent money on a free to play account, as all I spent in 5 minutes in this method was just 3,000 GP, buying out all the most profitable items, plus the thread, and they all sold for 45,000 GP on the GE. The money made from that would then be enough to do this method for an hour, which would mean you unlock a 500,000 GP per hour moneymaker by just making 3,000 GP in the first place on a brand new account, which you can easily do killing cows for hides, mining or chopping logs. Team capes can be bought from various NPCs in the wilderness and they all sell different ones. As a general rule, the further away from a bank they are, the more you make per cape. However, a simple check on the GE will show that there's almost always a few in demand, going for a lot more than usual. I found 2 that can be bought from sellers just west of Ferox, so quite close to a bank, which were currently 650 GP each on the GE, and each cape only costs 50 GP. The pool in Ferox restores your run energy so you never run out, and each trip was making me 16,000 GP profit. In 5 minutes I managed to do 4 trips to the cape seller in the bandit camp, making it currently 777,000 GP per hour, and in 5 minutes to the seller east of the Dark Warriors Fortress, I managed to do 5 trips in 5 minutes, making that one 972,000 per hour. And whilst it's in the wilderness, each run only costs 2,000 GP, so you're not really risking anything. This one is really good money for free to play, but large quantities of capes will take you a long time to sell. Uncooked cakes are a collectible item because you can get cakes so easily from thieving in pay to play, and to cook them requires 4 things first just to create them, meaning practically no one actually trains cooking that way. To make them you just need level 40 cooking, an egg, cake tin, pot of flour and a bucket of milk, all of which can be bought on the GE, currently for a total price of 273 GP. You can then make 7 per inventory by using any of the items on the cake tin, and I made 200 in just 6 minutes and 50 seconds. The current price of these in the collector's discords, which I'll link below, is 1500 GP, which would make this 2.1 million GP per hour. But it's notoriously slow selling collections, so I'd rather sell to the traders for about 1000 GP each. It does lower the method to 1.26 million GP per hour, but that's still better than any free to play moneymakers that you can find on the wiki. Once you've made plenty of money on the other free to play methods in my videos, you can start to make really good money just through the GE. Most item sets are more expensive than the parts it takes to create them, and in some cases a lot more. You can use the wiki to show you the current profits for each item in the game, but if you really want to maximise your profits, you can check the current GE prices for each set to find out which one's in demand and going up in price. I noticed the Zamorak armor set was trending up by 200,000 GP more than the GE price, but the components hadn't gone up yet. Not only was it usually 144,000 profit just making a set, but with this it's now another 200,000 on top of it. One thing to note though is that there'll always be a piece that you end up paying a little bit more for, otherwise you'd spend forever waiting for it to come into the GE, it's just part of making sets. Also, whilst the items buy easily enough, the buy limit is only 8 per 4 hours for this set, so that's the most amount of sets that you can make. Plus there's 4 items to make up this set, and you only get 3 GE slots in free to play. When I tested it, I put offers in for 10 sets and left it overnight, and by the morning they'd all bought. The total cost was 10.93 million GP, and after tax, they sold for 13.36 million in just a couple of hours, making me a solid profit of 2.43 million GP, probably the easiest money I've ever made in free to play. Most players know that you can make money creating dyes using Aggie the Witch in Draenor, but it's very tedious and slow due to the chat options you have to go through just to create one. But there's a much better and faster way to make money from these. Aggie only sells red, blue and yellow dyes. Orange, purple and green can be made in free to play by combining 2 of the other dyes together, and usually they sell for more than the total cost of the 2 dyes that's needed to create them. The best part is, unlike making dyes through Aggie, it's really quick to do. I spent 317,000 GP on 500 of each dye, and all you do is drag one of each colour down to the bottom right corner of your inventory and then keep using one on the other. When I tested the method, orange was the most profitable, but it does change, and make sure to check the current prices before you do any of this, as they do change quite often. It took me just under 7 minutes to make 500, and they all sold for 448,000 GP, a profit of 131k. Making this moneymaker 1.15 million GP per hour, with no requirements except a little bit of GP. Really tough to make money in free to play, but hopefully this will help you out so you can afford that bond, and then check out my channel for some even better pay to play moneymakers.